We're just waiting for the green light. All right, we got it. Thank you everyone for coming to this speech. I will be presenting today how to simplify UX flows in Web3 apps. My name is Ulysse. I'm one of the co-founders of APWine. And just to give a quick introduction, we're a protocol that enables you to get your salary in advance in DeFi. So we're going to see how to simplify a complex product like this one. All right, first off, this talk is aimed for developers, designers, curious people. So this is just a beginner talk. So we're going to be defining some terms first. How do you define UX and UI? User experience, in a product is mostly what you cannot see, but what you can feel. So this can be the wireframes, the user scenarios, the user personas, and the user path in general. So all the pages, basically a sitemap of everything that you can do and how you can do it. Now, user interface, on the other hand, is really what you can directly see and interact with. So these will be all the buttons, all the visual elements, the typography, everything that catches your eye and makes it, that makes you go, oh wow, this is a good app. We're going to be focusing on UX for this topic of today. Now, UX has a huge impact, but we don't really talk about it, and it's often an overlooked aspect. Good UX is unnoticed because it feels natural, but when a UX is bad, you notice it directly, and it can be very impactful and disastrous for your users. It can mean that your users, lose money, do things that they didn't want to do, or just simply don't understand how to use your app. And as an example, imagine for a second that there was a form where you need to input your phone number using a slider, and it would just take you hours, and even one pixel wouldn't be enough to select. So this is just a fun example, and you can see more of these on userinyourface.com. It's a very fun site. You can try right now. And just to sum it up, this very quick introduction, a user interface is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's usually not that good. And this means that good UX just feels natural again, and bad UX, you need to explain it over and over to make sure your users understand it. Now, just a quick example of a few, well, this is not great UX, but as you can see, we got some disco party going on here. These are some examples of notable UX improvements that we've seen in the previous years. We got the mouse, from the keyboard to the mouse, and then we got the finger touch with, Steve Jobs bringing the iPhone instead of a stylus. And recently we had the card swipes from Tinder, which are now used for, booking, anything that, is quite easy to do. Okay, let's stop this. Okay, much better. Now, what is UX flows? And this is going to be today's topic that we're going to dive into. A UX flow is the complete path that a user takes when using your product. So it's really from the beginning, whether they have to register on your website or deposit some money or create an account or create a post. It contains all the flow of your app, and so what you can do with it and how you can do it. And then we're going to see what are the challenges of UX flows in Web3. There are many, many constraints, technical constraints of being decentralized that we're going to see right now. And that builders, us, we, builders, developers, designers have to work around in Web3. The main one that I want to talk about today is the smart contract UX. Because in the end, smart contract is what your users are going to be interacting with, even if they go through a UI. Smart contract UX is extremely important. All of your users are going to be sending transactions from your interface, so, MetaMask basically, to your smart contracts. So it really replaces the backend of traditional Web 2 servers. So instead of having servers that your users interact with, you have decentralized smart contracts published on the blockchain, and this is really where everything is executed and stored. So if you design your smart contracts correctly, you're going to get good UX. But UX, in smart contracts also need to adhere to certain standards. And one of these standards that you've probably all seen here is the ERC20. So ERC20 is just the regular token standard for Ethereum, and it's basically used by 99% of tokens. Who has ever seen this approval request when interacting with a decentralized app like Yearn, Uniswap, Aave, and so on? Just raise your hands if you've ever seen this on MetaMask, approval of a token. Okay, awesome. So basically everyone. Now, is this good UX? This is not good UX, thank you. Why? Because first you need to approve a token every single time you interact with a new contract. And then, once this is done, this is basically sending a transaction. Once this is completed, you need to execute the actual transaction, your actual action. Now, there are two ways to kind of work around this. Either you do this, so you send a transaction every single time you want to do an action, so 2 transactions instead of 1, or you give an unlimited approval. But then, and this is what happened a lot in smart contracts, rug pulls, basically, people give unlimited approvals and then their wallet get drained. So this is the same as if you called your banker and you said, listen, you can allow anyone to get any money from my account. This is just terrible UX and terrible security. But there is a nice ERC that built upon this, and this is used by USDC. So if you go on Uniswap and use USDC, you're gonna see that it doesn't require you to send an approval. You just need to sign it. So it's like a letter that says, okay, I allow Uniswap to swap my tokens, and then you actually send the transaction. So this is pretty good because instead of 2 transactions, we're down to 1. And we're gonna see how this can simplify Web3 UX flows even more. But before that, a quick analogy on the things that's coming right now. Let's take, for example, the UX of a train. You are in Paris right now, we all are, and you want to go to Amsterdam to get some natural herbs or something. You're going to want to first go from Paris to Brussels, so buy a ticket, ride the train, stop in Brussels, this is in case there's no direct train, and then go all the way to Amsterdam with a new ticket. So in the end, you bought 2 tickets and you rode 2 trains, which is terrible UX because you need to change, you can get late, you can, your other train can get delayed. I'm not going to mention all of this, but what if there was a way to make this much more simple, without changing the entire railroad system? Well, the solution would be just creating a direct train, so a super train in which you only need to buy 1 ticket, ride it all the way to Amsterdam. It goes through Brussels, but it doesn't stop in Brussels. And so you're going to see that if you understand this, it's very simple to understand. You're going to understand what we're going to do next with something called Zaps. This is an example of APWine's previous iteration of the user interface. So I'm not going to go through all this because you don't need to understand how the protocol works. But essentially, to get a fixed rate instead of a variable interest rate on APWine, you need to do 3 different actions. First, deposit your ETH into Lido Finance, so staked ETH, and then deposit your staked ETH on APWine, and then swap tokens to get a fixed rate. 3 actions. But if you include the ERC20 approval, then you're up to 6 different transactions. This is absolutely terrible. And we've noticed this problem, and this is why we've been working on solutions to kind of counter this, and this is what I will present right now. The solution, one of the solutions, is Zaps. So Zaps are essentially smart contracts that act as the direct train between Paris and Amsterdam. So essentially, you just send 1 transaction, which is going to do all the actions that you wanted. And this is how it looks in the UI. So essentially, you just deposit your ETH, and in output, you get a combination of all the actions that were done by this specific direct train smart contract. And so you can see here that we listed all the steps that this is going to do. And so this is the Zap. And it kind of looks like a train, actually. Now, in this example, you can see that even though we simplified the user interface and the user experience, we didn't hide anything. We really show everything that the user goes through, because this is very important, especially in Web3, where you can get rug pulled or just do a stupid action very easily through MetaMask. So, especially in Web3, never hide, always abstract, and always show what's going on to the user. Now, I think if we have a little bit more time, let's try another example of simplification of UX with another example of our previous iteration. And we're working on new products right now. So this is the V1 of APWine. It looks very complex because it is an extremely complex product, but you can do very nice things with it. So there's a lot of choice here. And how can we simplify this? We're going to keep it stupid simple. And sometimes it's better to split your product into multiple branches so that you don't overload your user with stupid, complex information. So yeah, let's keep it stupid simple. We're going to make a small product. This is just a prototype that's going to focus on one use case of APWine. And the use case is get your DeFi yield ahead of time. And if you look at this, even visually, it's much more pleasant because you understand right away what it does. There's only two actions. There's the start button and there's the my positions button. There's not too much choice. And sometimes it's good to limit the choices. And then same thing here. We limit the number of assets and the number of, information overload that the user has to go through. So essentially, instead of showing everything at the same time, we just work on the visual hierarchy of each data point. So what's important here? The assets. So we show the icons in big and with very bold colors, and the APR, so the interest rate that you're getting. And so this is what's the most important here: asset, APR. And this is what you see right away. So this is all thanks to the hierarchy of the visualization as well. Okay, this was I hope a quick introduction and hope you learned something new with this talk. This was a very brief introduction of simplifying UX flows in DeFi. There are so many more things to explore and so many more innovations to build in this space. A lot of research is being made at the moment, and we're really looking forward to bringing more innovation with APWine. And this is why we are expanding the team. So right now, we're looking for developers and designers to join the team. So whether you're a beginner in DeFi, already an expert in Web3, we would be super happy to chat with you. Whether you're interested in smart contract UX and development, or user interface as a whole industry. So please get in touch. We're hiring, and you can follow me on Twitter at Ulysse or scan the QR code below me, behind me for more information. I hope you enjoyed this talk. I hope you learned something new. And thank you so much for being here.
Is there some questions?
Hello. First of all, thank you. I really hope more people are working on this kind of problems. The problem with approval is a real one that I think everyone is facing. I'm a developer myself, but the problem there is that you cannot actually make a contract give approval for you. So you cannot make a contract, call another contract to give approval for you. You have to be the one to call the approval. How do you work around this problem?
Yeah, that's totally right. Thank you for the question. That's a great question. I think we're going a little bit more technical into this, but it's a very good point. And what I would suggest is that for any application, any smart contract, to allow for a specific method that you can basically make an action on behalf of a user, but only if it benefits the user. So essentially, imagine you want to deposit on a platform, and you want to make this Zap that doesn't have to go through each approval. What if you add a function that lets you deposit for someone? So this cannot hurt the user, right? Because it can only be beneficial. So in that case, it's very good to have both a deposit method and a deposit for method. Because then when you, as a user, you go through MetaMask, you're going to call deposit. But if you go through a direct train that does a lot of different things, it can also deposit for you. Now, of course, this is not valid for withdrawals. So withdrawals, of course, would require approvals and everything. But for this kind of specific action, this is what I would recommend. And this is what a lot of different protocols already have. So on Uniswap, for instance, you can totally swap a token and in the same transaction send it to another user. So this is quite similar. So this is definitely something to take into account when you design smart contract UX. And this is why it's so important, because the way it's immutable, it can't really be changed. If you make a mistake in the design, and I'm not saying this is a mistake, but ERC20, the approval thing, it can really hurt the UX for the next few years. So let's plan beforehand and make sure that the UX is great. Thank you for the question.
We can have a last one question.
What are your thoughts on multi-chain UX?
Yeah, good question. I wasn't really expecting it, and to be honest, I'm really not an expert on cross-chain UX, but from what I've seen and from what I've tried, Stargate, bridges like Hop and so on, I think the only problem right now is that it's not instant. And this is just a technical kind of, yes. Oh, I see. So apps that support like a mainnet, Polygon, Arbitrum, this kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely a tricky one, and I think the standard for the apps right now is just to offer a drop-down. So this is definitely an area where innovation needs to be made, but it probably needs to be made also on the wallet level, because as long as you're going to have this distinction on the wallet level, there's nothing much you can do on top, in terms of the application. So probably, something like a custodial wallet could probably help solve this by having, not everything stored on one chain. But then it gets like, it's definitely an innovation that needs to be made. So, if you're looking to chat more about it, would be happy to. Thank you for the question. That's a good question. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a great day.